Okay, so I went ahead and put down this first initial wrap right here on because I'm going to walk you through it. I filmed it, but I kind of want to narrate a little bit better than what I did, just to give everyone a good example. But basically what you do to begin with is I went ahead and marked the bottom of my blank because that's where I like to knot everything. And what I mean by knot everything is, I guess, tie off. When you're making your custom wraps like this, you don't want anything shown on the top of the rod, just for aesthetics. It just makes everything look better if you know, all your knots and tie-offs are where they're not as visible when you're using your rod. So I went ahead and did that by gluing, first I marked the bottom of the blank, and then I went ahead and glued the hook keeper onto the blank. And basically all I do for that is I'll take the hook keeper in one hand, hit it with a lighter. I won't put it in indirect contact of the flame, but I'll have heat on it, and I'll come in with just a regular glue stick and hit the bottom of the guide foot, or I'm sorry, the hook keeper, and just adhere it to my blank by just pressing it on, and the glue will actually hold it there. And that allows you to turn a rod and everything whenever you're wrapping you're wrapping that hook keeper onto your blank. Other than that, it's the basic concept. You wrap your thread around the initial first wrap, and then you wrap your thread over itself, and that's what keeps your thread adhered to your blank. And then you just continue your wrap onto your guide foot. It's the same process as in my other videos. It's the same as when if you're making a fly rod, or you're making a spinning rod, or you're making a bait casting rod. When it comes to thread wrapping, there's no difference. So I just wrap my thread to hoist up to the end of the guide foot, just like any normal wrap would do. And then I come in with a just different colored piece of thread to finish that loop off, to adhere, to secure that thread to your rod blank. And all you do is take your thread, wrap your loop. I use a different color thread because it makes it easier to actually see what you're doing. But I come with a different color thread, lay it on my blank, wrap my main thread around it about a good 10 times, and then you'll take your tag end of the thread you're wrapping with and feed it through that loop and just pull everything through. It's very simple to do. And once you're done with that, I just come in with the razor blade and trim off the excess. It's not a whole lot to it. It's very simple. Like I said, it's the same concept if you're making a fly rod or any kind of rod. Once that's completed, I'll come in, and just for the sake of measurements, I'll come in with my calipers and measure how wide my first wrap was from my winding check to my reel seat. And in this case, it was just over 14 millimeters. Just to keep consistency, that's what I do. I'll make that same width of a wrap on the opposite side of the guide foot, just to keep the conformity, just to keep everything uniform so it looks better. Because the last thing you want to do is spend all this work into it and pick out your own flaws because you didn't take the time to do everything right or take measurements or anything like that. So just take your time. It's very simple to do. I think people are intimidated by this, but there's no need to be. Making your own custom rod is, a good feeling whenever you're doing it, and it's something that I said people, they think it's intimidating, and it's not. It's after a couple wraps, tying down guides, anybody can do it. It's fairly easy to do. So alright, so now I'm back. I'm going to wrap the opposite side. Let me turn a little bit of light on here. I'm going to wrap the opposite side of the hook keeper. And like I said, all I did was take the same measurements. I made a mark of where my starting line will be, and then I'm just going to run my thread over that hash mark. And this is a nice way of wrapping this way because I can use my left hand. You're just wrapping over one full turn, and then you want to take your main line and just wrap it over what you just wrapped down, and keep pressure on that line for a couple wraps. See there? Switch positions and keep going. And I'm not worried about packing everything just yet. I just want to get it secured on its own like this. See, it's not totally secured. It's still moving around a little bit. So I'll just keep pressure, lock my fingers up on the thread, and there we go. You can see how the line now runs under itself, and that's what keeps it secured. And at this point, just to make it easy on yourself, you want to make your first initial wraps straight. And what I mean by straight is the whole circumference of the blank, you want it even whenever you're wrapping, because you'll get gaps like that. See how this side may be pushed out this way a little bit, or I may need to send my guide over, turn it this way to keep everything uniform. Now here's a good example of why I marked the bottom of my blank. So right here you can see where this thread is. Right here is the top of my rod. Now if I was going to let that go as is, I would know that, I would see this from the side. I would see how it's wrapped under, and it's being picky, but when you're doing your own rod, it's, this is an easy fix. So what I'll do is just take that tag end and just pull it as I wrap till I get to the bottom of my blank, which is right there. And like I said, this is in the 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock position, so this is actually where this is the bottom of my rod. So I'll just come in with a razor blade, rest it on that line, and just pull, and everything is secured. And then from here on in, it's just a matter of wrapping. Now you may notice that, and I just noticed this too, my hook keeper is a little high. You can see the gap between that foot and the blank, but that's not a problem, because when I get to that point, I can secure that down with the thread. The main reason you glue it down to begin with is to get that first initial thread wrap over, and that'll keep it down. But this end being up, I'm not that worried about it being raised like it is, because I'll catch it with the thread to secure it, to bring it down on the blank. Not yet, one more maybe, almost. I'll just pull it down there. Almost caught it. I'll just do this for right now. Just bring up my, space it a little bit more and come back. I'll just hold it down like that for right now. And I'll come in and pack that in later. Now that's a big gap. I'm just going to do a couple turns. Come in with my nail. Pack everything in. And you can see how my line wrapped over on itself there? You don't want to do that. Here we go. I caught it. That'll secure it. Like I said, I think people think this is intimidating to do, and it really isn't. I mean, you're literally just wrapping thread around a blank, a rod blank. Nothing to it. Now, where's the bottom? Right there's the bottom. So I'm going to come in now with my other colored piece of thread here. Go under my line. You want this loop the way you're wrapping. Since I'm wrapping this way, my loop is this way. I'm wrapping towards my grip, so my loop's towards my grip. And I like to get 10 turns at least. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that just about does it. That's going to pull in on itself there, but go ahead, let that hang, put pressure on your main line, cut it, cut your main line, which is my blue thread, come in and just feed it through your loop, frayed a little bit, which no big deal, I can catch it. Let go, keep pressure on your main line by pulling. Right when I get under that first thread, right there, which is a little bit more than I wanted to, but I let everything go, come in with a razor, rest it on your thread, pull back, cut it, take your loop thread, in this case my yellow, and just pull it. And there it is. My hook keeper is now secured. I come in, got a little gap here that I hit, no big deal. Come in with my burning sheen tool, pack everything to where it's nice and even. Now this, by doing this, flattens the threads out, and if there's any gaps, takes those gaps away. So there you go. Now this little nub here, I'm going to say real quick with a lighter. I'm coming with a pair of nail clippers later and just get as close as I can, and you'll never know that was there. So there you go. There is the hook keeper tied into your custom trout rod. Now what I'm going to do next is tie this blue tinsel on in front of here, and that's just going to accent a little bit, and I'll show you how I do that. Okay, so the first thing I did here was I took measurements of the spacing that I'm going to customize this rod. And what I mean by that is I like to write things in the middle here between these gaps, and just to personalize it. It's neat to come back and look at things. I made rods years ago that people still have that I wrote their names and the dates and the model and all that stuff, and it's just neat to see that stuff, you know, years down the road. But I went ahead and I usually make mine about 2.5 inches. There's really no set limit of length whenever you do that, but I'll just come in with my calipers and rough estimate with my calipers where I want, how big I want that gap to be. And then, like I said, in this case it was about 2.5 inches. So I'll go ahead and I'll mark that with my grease pencil, and then from there since I want to keep consistency, I'll measure again the width of the first wraps that I did, which were about 14.5 millimeters, and I'll make that wrap. I'll go ahead and mark that, and that'll be the accent wrap, if you will, of the butt end of my rod blank. Like I said, it's not necessary, it's just to keep it consistent. But once I do that, I'll come in with the tip of just an old paintbrush, those, you know, little kids paintbrushes that you get at the store. I use them for finishing my rods, for putting on the finishing coats, but I come in, cut the tip off, come in and just tape it to my blank, and that will allow me to put my accent piece of that blue tinsel thread on here. So I'll go ahead and just get that done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off probably a good foot of tinsel thread, and this again is in my other videos, so you can go back and look, because I believe I did this on another video. But I'll just come in with a good foot of the thread, cut that off. It's very tiny, as you can see here. I hope it picks it up. That's a good foot. And then what you want to do is lay it on its side just like that. Wrap it. I'm going to give myself a little bit more, because it's better to have more than not enough when doing this. And I'm going to take it and just wrap it around my blank and that paintbrush tip. Keep your ends fairly close. So there's one wrap, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then one more, because this one really doesn't count, so I'm going to take it back. So should have grabbed my scissors. I got a little too much left over. But you're going to take your end that you just wrapped and run it under all those threads, and that was fairly easy. It's not always going to be that easy. It can get caught sometimes. So take that, run it under all your threads, and just pull it. Don't pull it tight. And you're going to take your opposite hand, hold all that together, and do the same thing with the other end. Take it. It's going to be a little tough, but you'll get it. Take that end, run it underneath, go ahead. And at this point you can technically let it go, but I just take both tag ends, pull them together like that, and you can see all the threads coming together. And then take your time, because the thread will turn over on itself at times. If you go too fast, it'll overlap. Take it, find the bottom of your blank, which is right there, according to my mark up here. Pull it close. Take both ends, just lightly take your time and cinch it down like that. And you can see a little tighter there. You can see it just gives it a little accent of that blue. With my hook keeper, move this a little bit over this way. My hook keeper is kind of blue and shiny. I'm using blue thread, and then I want to accent it with that blue tinsel. Let's take this off, and there you go. Same thing, just pull a little bit tight, pack it in, pack that bottom in, give it another. Come in with your razor blade, lay it flat, pull, same thing again. There we go. There's your accent piece. Get down here and look at it, make sure it's all tight. Yep. There you go. Now, basically what I'm going to do now, where's my marks? Right there. I'm going to do the same thing over and over. So I'll go ahead and wrap this. Move my blank down a little bit. Except I'm going to wrap, it doesn't matter which way you wrap. Oops, let me get everything in. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and do this part now, the top part of my accent piece, and it doesn't matter which way you wrap. I'm going to wrap from the tip section to the butt just because I just like doing it that way. That's my preference. But like I said, it doesn't matter. Same thing. Wrap your line over, pressure down, one more over, turn the thread over on itself. See how the tag end goes this way because you're going to wrap over it. Keep pressure on it. There you go. Now, I know where my mark is. I'm just going to clean some of this white away of this grease pencil because sometimes it can get on the thread and it just shows through. It's just a, you know, nothing major. It doesn't hurt anything as performance. It just visually you can see it. I'm going to go ahead and just line up all my marks, make sure my first initial wrap is straight, give it, you know, good 10 wraps, come in with the razor blade, cut it off. From here, keep turning. Now like if anybody watch, you know, any of my other videos, this isn't a power wrapper, it's all hand wrapping, so. Oops, I was looking away. Got away from myself. I was looking at the camera. No big deal, just pack it in. And there you go. And then I'll do the same thing with that last accent piece, and that'll be the butt section of your first custom fly rod. So, like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll be posting more as wrapping the snake guides in and everything else, and even customizing this part, so stay tuned for those videos.